David Olelowo.
Thank you very much. Oh my God. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that so much. That was unexpected. Please have a seat. Thank you. That means so much. Thank you, especially from SAG members, my family. Thank you. Well, it's a funny one today. I am being my own warm-up act today because Ava is not here yet, Ava Duvernay, who is going to be moderating the Q&A. So I thought I'd come and chat to you. But thank you so much for being here today. And I thought to sort of pass the time for the 5 minutes I think it's going to take for her to get here, I would let you know how I met Ava Duvernay, for those of you who may not know. So this was completely divine, the way I met Ava Duvernay. I was on a plane on the way to Vancouver to do some reshoots for a film I had done called Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And I sat down next to a gentleman who was watching his iPad, and he was watching a show that I had done in the UK called Spooks. It was called MI5 here, for those of you who may have seen it. And he paused it and said, "Is this you I'm watching on my iPad?" I looked at his screen and I said, "Yes, that is indeed me." And he goes, "Oh, this is perfect. You're an actor. Is it a good idea to put money into movies?" And I was like, "Well, yes." I said, "That's a bit of a loaded question. What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, someone just asked me for $50,000 to put money into a film called Middle of Nowhere. It's this director called Ava Duvernay who wants to do it." And the name rang a bell. I had seen a CNN interview for a film she had done called I Will Follow, and I was really impressed with her. So it rang a bell, and I said, "Well, do you mind sending me the script? I'll give you my opinion as to whether you should put the $50,000 in." I read it. It was brilliant. One of the reasons I really wanted to be in movies is seeing the amazing work of Spike Lee. You know, She's Gotta Have It, Do the Right Thing. Even though I was a kid growing up in London and it wasn't necessarily my culture, there was something about it that just spoke to me. And when I read Middle of Nowhere, it just reminded me of early Spike Lee. And so not only did I tell that guy to put the money into the movie, but on the title page of the script was the title, Ava's name, and her number, her cell number. So, oh wow, this is such a great story with actors in the room. Everyone knows what happened next. Yes, I called the number. So I called, I said, "Hi, my name is David Olelowo. You don't know me, I just read your script. I think it's amazing. Would you please consider me for the role?" She said, "Oh my gosh, you were on my short list. I didn't know you would do my little movie," because I had done other films that were bigger movies, playing smaller roles, but bigger movies. And I said, "No, I really, really love this script." She said, yeah, I know what's gonna happen. You're gonna tell your agents about it. They're gonna tell you not to do it. And it's not gonna happen. And I said something to her I really mean, and it's a good thing to say in front of actors. I said, no, my agents work for me. They are literally my employees. I pay them a wage in order to provide a service, and so that is not how this is gonna go. She was right about what my agent said. They said, "Oh, you don't want..." What an agent actually said to me that was so, I've never been able to forget it. They said, "This is not the kind of film you want to be seen doing," is what they said. It was $100 a day film. The total budget was $250,000. And of course, I told them to take a flying leap, and I ended up doing the movie. So we shot Middle of Nowhere. It was in under 20 days. She's such a phenomenal director that she went on to win Best Director at Sundance for that film. In the meantime, when I first moved to LA in '07, this script, Selma, had hit the doormat. Thank you. When I first auditioned for Selma, the director at that point, the feedback was, David Olelowo is not Dr. King. That was the thank you. That's exactly how I felt. Like, oh, gosh. And anyway, so that was the initial feedback. But I just had this feeling in my spirit that there was something about that script, that role, that was mine. Anyway, that director, thankfully, was gone. And a few years later, Lee Daniels actually cast me in the film. But as is the case with these kind of projects, it's the same with Bass Reeves. Bass Reeves took me 8 years to get made. Selma, it was 7 years. And from 2007 to 2014, where we eventually made it, in 2010, Lee cast me, but it was always the same excuse for why we couldn't get the film made. Black doesn't travel, white people don't want to feel white guilt, black people don't want to feel black pain, this isn't gonna make money, yada, yada, yada. So anyway, Lee was going to direct it. They wouldn't give him the amount of money it needed to get the film made. And we crunched and crunched and crunched the budget. We were $2 million short. And every director, whether it was Stephen Frears was the first one who told me no. Then it was Paul Haggis, then it was Spike Lee, then it was Lee Daniels. And every single director was being asked to make it. Oh, she's here? Well, I'm telling a story now. I will finish my story, then I'll get my sister Ava on here, because it's about her anyway. I'm being her warm-up act. So basically, every director was being told that the amount of money it should be made for is not what it's worth. So Lee had to bow out of that of the film, and so I
got the job.
There she goes.
Sorry. Hi, everybody.
I was having too much fun.
That's so good.
Thank you. Well, I knew you'd be here. I thought I'd dress up.
Happy to see you all. Wow, what a beautiful crowd.
It's very nice. They're very lovely.
What is it, Thursday afternoon?
I know, a rainy.
Are you all independently wealthy? You're just Thursday afternoon. So, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very good.
Very happy to see you. How late am I?
I don't know. How long was my story? I don't know.
But it was worth it. It was worth it.
Right on time. There you go. Right on time.
Well, I'm happy to be here to talk with you a little bit about this piece, Lawmen, Bassett, Reeves. Isn't it incredible? Beautiful, beautiful. We sit here not only with the series leading man extraordinaire, the star, but the executive producer. And let me just tell you, as you all know, in our business, executive producer can mean a lot of things. Okay? Executive producer sometimes means it's the money, sometimes it's the person who was attached to it before who needs something. Give them the executive producer, you know? Sometimes it means someone who assisted the producerial team in some way. But in television, that EP, those EP stripes, as you all well know, are usually, in the best and highest sense, the visionaries behind it. And I can say, having been your sister and friend, you've carried this film, this piece in your heart so fervently and so passionately for so long. It exists because of you. It exists because of you. And so watching what's happening with it and with you right now gives me such joy and such elation and such "We told you so," that it's been a thrill. So I just want you to chat with me a little bit and share with folks a little bit about not where your love for the material started, but I want to talk about the path to getting it made. The no's, the maybes, the, oh, you sure, the you're gonna play them, all of these things. A little bit of the good, the bad, and the ugly, because that helps us feel the triumph even more.
Well, thank you, sis. Thank you so much. It's just such a privilege to get to do this with Ava. I mean, like, she is literally the closest thing in the world for me to a sister. So thank you, sis. Thank you. And we have talked about these things ad nauseum, you know, just in terms of the projects that we are drawn to. By the way, can we just for a second, whether you've seen it or not, just give it up for Ava for Origin. Origin. I mean, what a transcendent piece of work. I literally have goosebumps just even thinking about it, and I'm not gonna cry. So yes, the highs and the lows, as you know, sis, you know, as I was talking to these guys about Selma and the journey we went on with that, you know, it shouldn't be you, it shouldn't be her, it can't be that piece, it's, no one wants to see Dr. King. What happened with me on Bass Reeves is that someone, David Permit, who's a wonderful producer, presented me with the notion of making some kind of, whether it be TV or film, just let's make something that illustrates the transcendence of this character. And I didn't know anything about him, to my shock and then my chagrin, because I loved Westerns. I grew up wanting to be a cowboy. And naively, once I did a little bit of a dive, I thought, oh my gosh, this thing writes itself. We are gonna get this made, you wait and see. And so that was 2014. 2015, we went out to the entire industry and to a studio and a cabler and all of them, they said the same thing. We're not doing this because no one is making Westerns, was literally the refrain, time and time again. So then we sort of let it sit for a while. In 2017, we went out again to all of the same places. You know how remits change, the revolving door of executives, like, okay, let's see if those people have moved off and see what happens. And this time the feedback was, we are not doing this because everyone's doing Westerns. For goodness sake. You know, but the reality is executives get very, very good at packaging the pass, you know, at knowing how to tell you no. And so, but we had experienced this with Selma, in that there were so many no's on the path to our yes, and then that film went on to do what it went on to do. I'd had the same thing with The Butler, where everyone said no, that film had to be cobbled together, not by financing from any studio. We had to go to Cannes, sell foreign territories, 17 foreign territories at $1 million a pop to raise the $18 million. We only finished the film because there was a hurricane in New Orleans that meant we got the insurance money to complete it. And then it was acquired and went on to make $172 million. You know, so this is a narrative that you consistently see of the undervaluing of Black stories, the undervaluing of the audience's ability to absorb it. But the thing that was truly egregious and then has gone on to be a wonderful narrative is the idea that Bass Reeves for them wasn't global. It was as they would call it, a quintessentially American story. It's something that for the amount of money that you would need to make it for, it's just not, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, so to speak. Now, I sit here with you, again, indicative of all these other successes I've talked about, with a show that has gone on to be the most watched show globally on Paramount Plus in the last year. So that's the journey we've been on. Many bumps along the way, but that's basically how we got here.
Also, you sit here as a Golden Globe nominee. The latest, the SAG nominee.
SAG
nominee.
You can say
Lawmen
British
Reeves
choice,
premiered
okay.
Sunday, November 5th, with 2 episodes exclusively on Paramount in the U.S. and all international territories. It set a new record, the most watched global series of the year. I just want to talk a little bit because I remember when you told me it was Paramount Plus, I was like, you sure? Because it's part of the Taylor Sheridan universe. And I thought, and I'll be honest, I don't know if that people who watch that show are going to like this show. And I worried for you. You never worried about it. You thought that there was a through line between, the not even the style of storytelling, but the heroism. There was something about the family structure. There was something in it that made you feel like it would align. What was that?
Well, the Taylor Sheridan universe, so to speak, what it has done on Paramount Plus is corral, as we know, a massive audience around a certain kind of lens on the West, on Middle America, a certain kind of storytelling. And for me, I truly think, as a producer, I always think this way, is how do you serve up the fresh within the familiar? How are you serving to the audience something that they go, oh, that's for me, but whoa, a new lens. And I often think the way to show the new lens is a new perspective on something we know people lean into. And that's the way you convince executives that this is something that they should consider. And I think it's also the way that you handhold the audience towards something that maybe they haven't considered before. And so the Western, of course, is a big lead into that. But in developing the show, when talking to Chad Feehan, our wonderful showrunner, the thing that was most important for me and for him was to frame the show around a family. To frame the show around a guy who, beyond this episode you've just seen, does a very dangerous, very demanding job that takes him out of the house a lot. He loves his family deeply, and the tension of the show is, how do I get back home? How do I get back home? How do I get back home? That is universally relatable. Anyone and everyone can understand the work-life balance being challenging. And so we felt if we framed it that way, that makes it for everyone, whether it's black, whether it's white, whether it's a Western, whether you like that genre or not, and that has gone on to prove to be the case. I also think we're in an era with streaming whereby if it's good and people like it and people are talking about it, people will find it.
I agree with that. I will say, though, that I think I was completely wrong. I mean, Paramount Plus has done a really good job. I mean, I'm not, and no one's paying me to be here. I'm saying, like, the billboards, the commercials, like, they really put it felt like somebody really leaned into this, because we've all, unfortunately, been in situations where you're just not seeing the promotion and the marketing. I just think it's been excellent, and there's nothing that's given me more joy than videos of you towering above Times Square with your hat and your glass, so whatever. And I just like, look at this, what is this? So it's been incredible. And I will also say that while it feels familiar to that, what Taylor has done with the other shows, this feels completely unique and completely David, and your fingerprints are all over it, and bravo, it makes me so happy.
Thank you.
One of the things that really, let's talk about acting. And so you are not American.
That's correct.
But you like to play quintessential Americans.
I do.
Okay, why and how? What is your process? You know the criticisms. you know that they're over here taking our jobs. Right? Does that ever get to you in terms of, does it power you, fuel you? Does it affect your process in any way? And how did it directly correspond to your, the way that you broke down this character in the American West?
Thank you. Thanks for that question. My ambition as an actor has always been to, as much as possible, hold up a mirror to what I deem to be humanity in all of its complexity. And added to that is displaying the complexity of Black life here on Earth. So for me, whether it's playing an African, I am someone of African descent, my parents were Nigerian, I was born in the UK, so whether it's, is that my brother? I see you all. You can always tell them that there's a Nigerian in there. I said Nigerian.
They can't help it.
They can't help it. They just can't help it. It's in the body. It's just, so I grew up in Europe, in the UK, and I've now lived here for 17 years. I'm an American citizen. I'm raising American kids. And for me, it's less about really wanting to play Americans. It's about complex characters that are incredibly interesting, complicated. And for me, one of the things I'm always looking for when it is a character who is Black, like me, is aspirational qualities. Qualities that make you, whether you are Black, white, or everything in between, or anything in between, you go, that guy, I relate to that person. I want to be like that person. In fact, I am that person. Because to me, that is what breaks down prejudice. We only fear the things we don't understand. And the amazing thing about what we get to do, and you do this astoundingly in Origin, is to illustrate how much we are alike. And therefore that debunks the notion of how fundamentally different we are supposed to be. We are so much more alike than we are different. And if a white kid in Idaho watches Bass Reeves and goes, I want to be Bass Reeves for Halloween, that's my job done. And so it's about just playing as many. As much as I love myself, I have no interest in playing a British Nigerian guy every time it's about going to the character, and the further away from me they are, the more attractive the role is.
Well, let's talk about the actual prep work. How many actors here? Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the prep work, because the physicality. So in this, Bass is evolving over time. And also he is speaking native languages at a certain point. You're touching all these different departments, and you have to work with them very intimately to build the character, from production design and costume, the languages. Is that all done as a layering process? You like to do one pass, and then you perfect this, and you never perfect anything, but kind of lay down, let me get the physicality, how he moves, and then let me see what he wears, and then let me put the words in my mouth in a certain way? Or do you like to jumble it all into a stew and feel it out all at once? What's been your process with him? And also speak to age progression.
Yeah, thank you. Gosh, you can tell she's a director. It's a good question. We walked this process together, obviously, on Selma as well, but as you say, that was just 3 months, this is 15 years. So it is different in that way. For me, it starts with the research. I will read everything and anything I can get my hands on in relation to that character, especially when it's a historical character. And then specific to this is the accent, because there is no recording of how people spoke in the 1860s and 70s. You have people who were alive at that time, and then there are older recordings in the late 1800s, early 1900s. but a lot of them are very old people, and they are speaking with all that comes with that. You know, they don't have teeth, or their voice is a certain way. It's almost inaudible. Also, the recording is inaudible. So you don't want to go in there talking like that. So you almost have to kind of guess what a younger version of that person is. There's also the fact that at that time, African Americans were closer to the African sound than later on. It's not the Oklahoma, Texas sound you have now. You have people who were not moving around as much, so they were in enclaves whereby the accent was far less diluted than it would be later on. So I worked with a dialect coach, Denise Woods, where we deconstruct the accent. We did it with Dr. King because it wasn't just an Atlanta accent. It had Boston in there, then it had the Southern Baptist preacher thing in there, but he was also rebelling against the way his father was preaching, so he kind of did a whole different way in. You have to deconstruct it to sort of build it back up.
The voice is a big layer for you. Once you have the voice, do you, because for some actors it's like, well, once I find the clothes, or once I find the movement or the posture. For you, especially being a Brit and playing these American characters, do you feel like you have an anchor once you at least have a place to go with the voice?
Yes, but it's the spirit, actually. It's what is the spirit of this individual? What is the emotional, spiritual, metaphysical? It sounds a bit out there, but once I have a sense of what that is, then all the work starts to bolt itself onto the spirit of that person. And I gravitate towards characters that have a very energized spiritual life. And I'm not talking about necessarily faith, even though Abbas Reeves has had a faith. It's more about what he was driven by justice. He was driven by knowing that the servitude, the enslavement, all of those things that he and his people had been subjected to was fundamentally wrong, and yet he was having to sort of do this dance between self-preservation and the notion of what justice might look like in a future that he couldn't yet see, but his connection to God gave him hope for. And that is a very, very strong inner motor that is driving the way he speaks, driving the way he moves, driving the choices he makes. So then the combination of the research and the accent and the clothes and the horse riding and being in the gym for over a year in order to have the physical... Oh, you noticed.
He dropped it. He dropped it.
Hello, ladies. Hello. I see. We turned a corner.
He's such a mess. Let me ask this, because we have actors, and I always love talking with actors. Rehearsal.
Yes.
Okay, so in rehearsal for TV is different, right? You have directors coming in, you're on the move, you are, how have you been able to, or how did you approach rehearsal in this piece in an episodic environment where there was, you're moving around in time, you have different episodic directors coming in, because I know you like rehearsal, and there's not as much opportunity for it in this environment. How did you carve that space for yourself to prepare?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one of the wonderful advantages of being a producer, where you can prioritize that and say, no, the way this is its optimal version is we are going to make the time for the actors to have the time to really dig deep. And so I had time with Lauren E. Banks, who plays my wife in it, where we really went over what is this couple, who are they, why are they together, what are their aspirations, and as a producer, if you say, no, everyone needs to leave the set while we rehearse this properly, people listen, which is nice, and so we as the most prioritous thing for me was for it to be an actor-friendly environment. It's a very big show, a lot of moving parts, horses, carriages, period, costumes, all of that. But at the end of the day, if the audience aren't connecting to the truth of what the actors are doing, there is no show.
how would you advise an actor who's in an episodic environment, who's not the producer, to create, a space for themselves to be able to? I mean, I know I've directed episodic. It's just like, hi, I'm Ava. You're playing the cop who comes in and says the thing. Great. So I'm thinking you stand here. Great. Action. And I mean, because we've got to go.
Yeah.
You've been there. What would you advise folks who are in that space, who aren't able to carve it out or say, everybody stop, give me a minute, let's talk this through, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would go and find my fellow actors, run lines with them, knock on their trailer door, introduce yourself to them, say, do you mind, do you want to, are you open to running the scene? Because if you get a jump on that, especially in an environment where the directors just go, trust me, any and every director on the planet is going to be happy if you guys turn up with an even better scene than would be the case if you were just running and gunning. And so even day before yesterday, I was on a 2-hour FaceTime with my leading lady for the next thing and we were just going through all the scripts. That's not something that is scheduled by production or whatever. For me, every moment of every day that you can, once you've been given the privilege of a role, you are moving the needle towards giving the best performance you can.
Yes.
What we do is such a privilege. I mean, it's amazing. We know how many of us would love to do it and don't get to do it. So if you're up at bat, you're doing it for your fellow actors to say, this is what we do. And when you give us the chance, we are going to knock it out of the park as best as we can. And so that is the thing for me. Whatever that means for you, you must do that thing that is going to give you a shot at being your best friend.
Yes, preacher, that's a word. I'm just checking time because I don't want to go over. I don't know who to look at. Great. So 5 means 10, we kind of put budget a little bit. Let me ask you about the conjuring chemistry, okay? So you are working with someone, it's an actor who's come in, there might be different experience levels. You played Shakespearean King at the Royal Shakespeare Theatre. I always say it wrong. You want me to do the voice?
No, don't do the voice. Don't do the voice. She's amazing, but not at that.
Right. You've done many things, but in this, I noticed that you were working with everyone from a Donald Sutherland to, I had not seen Lauren in much before. And there are people who are coming in as day players, and everyone's just got different level of experience. And so beyond the kind of the actor technique, there were moments in this where there has to be, it feels like moments of such chemistry that you conjured with who you were playing with. Sometimes just in scenes where I feel like I didn't even see that person again. What is your path to that? How do you approach that as one actor to another? What are the things that you say, when you're just meeting someone and you just have one scene or one line, or because I've seen you do it, so I just want you to share how you kind of create connection pretty instantly with your partner, no matter what their experience level is.
Yeah, great question. Again, an advantage of being a producer is that I was part of picking who the actors are. But I mean this.
Meet everyone before. Some people are kind of off tape.
I did.
You met every day player with who had one line?
That's what I mean about moving the needle.
Okay, tell me about that.
Because, it's this spiritual thing I'm talking about. So, Barry Pepper, I had worked with before. And he was the first person I wanted in that role. And so I called Barry and I said, this is your role. He was out in the middle of Canada somewhere hunting moose on some satellite phone. I was like, dude, you need to come in here and do that. And so I knew I had that with Barry. Lonnie Chavis, who goes on, I don't know if he's in this episode, but he goes on to play my daughter's my daughter's boyfriend in it. And I directed him in The Waterman. Lauren E. Banks, we did chemistry reads together. That's how she got the job. You know, we all know who Donald Sutherland is, we all know who Dennis Quaid is, we know those guys are always going to deliver. But Joaquina Calacango, I had a hand in casting, who you see more of in this show. Justin Hurt Dunkley, Demi Singleton, Forrest Goodluck. You know, we had several sessions with each other cultivating that chemistry. And part of them being cast is feeling like that will be there, calling them, FaceTiming them, and sitting down with them, because you're right. Sometimes there's an alchemy with chemistry, but for me, I personally didn't want to leave that to chance with the major relationships in the show.
Well, so you did it through the casting process and used the producerial kind of prerogative to do that, which it comes through. But if you are not the producer,
yes.
What advice can you give our friends who are in a situation where you're with someone and that, you know, how I've seen you conjure it quickly, and want you to just talk a little bit about, because I know that when actors arrive to my set, and what he said before, which is spend the time in between. Y'all have time. You have time.
Yeah.
You know, there's time. We're waiting. You're waiting while we're setting up. Be running it. Be talking about it, be thinking about it, be doing some of that work. But also, on this last film, I saw actors who, in that time, were very intentional about creating chemistry and connection with each other off the page.
Yeah.
How does that work?
And the reason it's such a great question is what I'm talking about the advantages of being a producer, that's when it gets easier, but it's the same philosophy when you're not, which is that calling up production, the line producer, the first AD, who has the so-and-so been cast? Can you ask if it's okay to get their number? Just wanted to have a chat with them. It's the same thing. Conjuring that chemistry is seeking them out and creating an environment that is, oh no, we're not just turning up and just doing our thing in a bubble and seeing if it connects. We are going to work this together. And all ships rise with that tide. You know, you will know how good your production of Hamlet is going to be by how quickly Hamlet is off book. If I come into your trailer and I've never met you before and I don't have my sides with me and I say, can we run the scene? And you're still fishing for your sides. You're like, oh, give me a second. Can you come back in like half an hour? You know, and that just raises the bar on everything as well. So I think no matter the level of the show, whether you think it's a good script or not, if you go in there going, okay, I am going to set a standard by the way I interact with this set, with that director, with the other actors. I'm going to go the extra mile. During lunch, do you mind if we just run the scene together? You know, all that stuff. So whether you're a producer or not, it's finding all of those pockets, all of those moments, because creating chemistry is basically just having a conversation, the likes of which builds history that then manifests on screen. That can be got in a half-hour conversation during lunch, and then you're going into a scene, an office scene, where you're supposed to have been colleagues for a while, and trust me, it's going to trip off the tongue in a slightly different way, because you know who their kids are, whether they have a dog or not, which team they support. It's going to work its way into them. That's what I mean by the spiritual component. There are these things that emanate off the screen that audiences feel, but they may not be able to articulate exactly what it is they're watching. And it's creating these snatched pieces of experience that then manifest on the screen in a way you go, whoa, those people really seem like they're in love. Well, it's just that they've had a few more conversations than the other show that you watched and went, yeah, I didn't really buy the chemistry. So, you know, that I truly think is the way to do it.
Great answer. That's what I wanted you to share. I'm almost finished. It's 2 more. She said last one, I said 2 more. Really. I got it. He's gonna go fast. I'm gonna ask fast, he's gonna answer fast. 2 more. This one is something that people really don't think about, that I wish more actors knew. It is a little secret. Can you talk about interactions with the crew?
Yeah.
And how it can make or break your experience.
Yes.
And just raise everything up if you're considering that.
Yeah. The amazing thing about what we do is I truly believe it is a miracle to get tens, sometimes hundreds of people together all hopefully pushing in the same direction to create something that feels singular and it touches the human spirit. The only way, I truly believe this, that is even remotely possible is if humanity and a humane environment is created. Kindness is such a key. Because at the end of the day, if we're going to do this thing that I just talked about of holding a mirror up to humanity, and then you have an inhumane environment, that also finds its way onto film. It does. You can feel when there's just a coldness to it, or an impenetrable nature to it. And the extra mile people will go for you when you're kind, considering how difficult it is to do what we do, whether you are a PA or you're the director, the amount of doors that open for you, spiritually, literally, emotionally, when you are kind, when you are polite, when you are grateful, when you are conscientious. And it doesn't cost anything in a very expensive medium. That stuff doesn't cost, and it's probably the most important component to having a good experience and a good product at the end of the day. And so, and the fish stinks from the head down. And it's why I also relish being in a leadership role, to be able to exemplify that. I simply will not accept it on a set where I'm in a position of leadership. It is to be called out. People need to be protected because there is such a thing as a hierarchy, and people take advantage of that. And the only way it's not abused is if people who are in the position to say no say no. And so I'm glad you point that out, because it is an underspoken about element of filmmaking, but I actually think it's the most crucial.
And I asked that question because I wanted you to share that answer, but also I wanted folks to see your heart, that you are a sister sweetie pie person. You are a good, deep down, from top to bottom person. You're not an actor, famous actor. You are just silly and crazy and sweet and kind to your core, and it's real what you see and what you feel from him. So my last question is, when you're an old man and you are accepting that Lifetime Achievement Award, and they play the clip from Bass Reeves, and you were young and hot, and you had a six-pack, and you were working, all the things. What do you want people to feel when they see that clip? What do you want them to remember about you and this time and this part?
Ooh, amazing question. Well, firstly, I hope and pray that you are there.
I do too, my friend. I do too.
And I hope and pray that some of what I've said here today is how I am thought of. Is that I did my damnedest to make my people proud. And when I say my people, I don't just mean black people. I mean humanity. Because my people is humanity. But the specifics of who I am is a black man who is deeply proud of my heritage and recognizes that there is an intrinsic and inherent injustice still baked into our industry in relation to getting stories like this told. And what my prayer and hope is that by the time I'm an old man, there will be a normalization of the marginalized in a way that I can look back and go, remember all those crazy executives? Remember the crazy stuff they used to say to us back then? Isn't it great that our kids don't have to deal with that? That I hope I'm a drop in the ocean of that change. And I hope that what people see and say is that he did it with kindness, with love, with hard work, and with a degree of humility that meant that humanity was lifted up.
They shall. David Olelowo, Lawmen,
Thank you.
consideration.